Have you ever had a decorative stitch that didn't just form just perfectly? Maybe after it went a few stitches forward and came back, the stitches did not align? There is a way on the BERNINA 570 Quilters Edition to balance the stitch. What you're doing is balancing the forward and reverse movement so a stitch can come together. So why would you have to do this in the first place? Well, here's the thing. Every fabric is going to be different. If you're working on something that's kind of squishy, like fleece or just stretchy, oh my gosh, some of those stitches just don't have a chance to turn out as well. Now we always talk about stabilizer when we're working with our decorative stitches and how key that is to get a good forward and back results so everything lines up. But sometimes, even with like corduroy, you know those little ridges in that fabric? That's going to make it so some stitches are just not going to look as pretty when they stitch. So what am I talking about? We're going to use the honeycomb stitch as just a little kind of reference stitch. So I'm going to just stitch it out just a little bit to show how we get started with this. So you can see that there's a back and forth to this stitch. So let's say those stitches didn't come all the way back and connect and there was a little gap. What you can do is touch the eye for information, and you don't see it when you go into this. It's because you have to touch and scroll up. And you're looking for this little function that is called balance, but it's pictured as a set of scales. So when you touch that function, you get the stitch that you're actually working on screen. So here's how it works. What you're going to do is you're going to use the knobs to the side here to actually adjust the stitch so it matches the problem that you see on the fabric. So of course this stitch is turned out perfect, so we're going to have to kind of look at it, manipulate it, and then opposite. So if the stitch itself did not come back and I had this little gap in between, I'm going to match the picture on screen to the problem I see on my fabric. So super easy. So maybe it's a little off, maybe it's a lot off. Okay, so by telling the machine this is how my problem is, what it's going to do is it's going to force the machine to fix the problem because it knows where it's supposed to be. Now, instead of it fixing the problem, you know what this is going to do is it's actually going to accentuate it the opposite way. So I've actually used my balance to actually create stitches that look a little bit different. So here's what I'm going to actually get, and I'm going to show you that after I've stitched the original fine one, so by me showing it that it had a gap, it went ahead and pushed my stitches closer together. So see how the original stitch and the second stitch is actually opposite, meaning it pushed it together, it's just that's not the look that I was wondering. Let's just actually go the opposite way. So let's say we pushed it, so we're showing that my problem was actually it was too kind of overlapped. Let's watch the machine as it spreads out the stitch. So like I said, it is opposite when your machine is like totally spot on, but what you do have is the ability to adjust it no matter what fabric you've chosen to work on, because there's so many fabrics out there and so many variables with thread and stabilizers or it being so flimsy that it's hard for it to pull it through and keep it nice and perfect. You have the opportunity on every single stitch. That's just a good one to like really give you a good idea. So let's just say I picked one of these stitches, go into the eye, touch and look for the scales, and then again you can move those closer or further apart depending on what the problem is, and then it will bring it back to the perfection that that stitch was created to look like. So just remember, start by using stabilizer when you can. You could even starch some of your fabric. That always helps with some of the forward and reverse feeding. But when you have a problem you can't fix, we do have the built-in balance on the BERNINA sewing machine.